may have played poker, but playing poker in Texas is a different animal. This is the Texas Poker Podcast with Tyler and Clint.
Hello, this is the Texas Poker Podcast. I'm Tyler. This is Clint.
What's up, y'all?
We are back with a new episode, or I guess the continuation of last episode, really.
Yeah, kind of. So, I think the last episode was more about the more overall experience of running deep in a big tournament. Hopefully that episode conveyed a little bit what that was like. This one, in the final table, which was live streamed, I had several, I'd say, controversial hands. So this is going over those hands. I will say, I'm not saying that it was right or wrong, but the thought process leading into the decisions going into those hands.
Yeah, absolutely, right? You say, you can't tell you what you should have done. All we can say is what happened, so.
Yeah.
And at least what thought process got you to play the hands, however, to lead to controversy, I guess.
Yeah, like I say, there were not a lot of easy decisions one way or the other. So this is kind of the thought process that led into them.
All right, so what's the first hand? What's the one to kick off? How many hands are you going to go over, you think?
I think the 3 is probably
Plenty.
There were 3 that were really kind of close, controversial decisions. So, I start out final table on the big stack. I think fairly aggressive and cut off button.
Are we 9-handed?
Yes, at this point we were. No, we were not 9-handed at this table. We were at this first hand that I'm going to cover. We were 7-handed.
Okay, perfect.
So, I think Nguyen went to. He was pretty crazy. In the 2 final tables. I saw him go all in multiple times with 9 high. He raises, the big blinds are $250,000. He makes a raise from early position to $1.1 million.
Okay, and what do you have?
Comes around to the button to me, and I have ace-8 suited. So this is not the controversial part of this hand, but I think it probably should be. Ace-8 suited. We are both the biggest stacks at the table at this point, and he can do just about anything. I wonder if I can justify a fold. I obviously make the call here. I do wonder if I could justify a fold here.
I definitely think so, depending especially how short the other players are.
Here's the thing, is if we both have an ace against this player, it's getting all in. Once I make a call of 1.1 million, there's about 3 million in the pot with the blinds. So if we hit I think he had around 11 million. I think it was 11 million effective. So at that point, you're not really getting away from it.
No, I definitely see what you mean. This being the controversial part.
Yeah, I don't think this was the controversial part, but I think this probably should have been the most controversial part.
Yeah, this is just a great way to flop an ace and then get stacked kind of situation in a spot where there's a lot of short stacks behind you.
So that would be my argument for why I should have folded it. My argument for why I did make the call was ace-8 suited.
It's like, could flop a flush.
It could flop a flush. He's been opening way too wide. Overplaying his hands, and I have a suited ace on the button in position against somebody who is kind of a wild card with a pretty strong hand. So that was my thought process on it. I think you can justify both. I don't think I can immediately say this should be a fold either. I think I could justify a call, but I think you can definitely justify a fold being like the 2 biggest stacks and maybe just letting some of these shorter stacks kind of battle it out a little bit more. But here's the thing. But I do make the call. The flop, I think it was 3-4-7 with 2 hearts. So he immediately jams all in.
Talk about so dicey.
Yeah. So, okay. So here's my theory on when I'm going through the hand is the best hand. I'm never giving him credit. I mean, since he's been absolutely insanely wild, I'm never giving him credit for a 2-pair or a set here. I mean, to me, if someone who's playing like he is gets that, then that's just good for him. I mean, there's not much you can do. My immediate thought is an overpair.
I mean, that's definitely what I would be leaning toward. But like you said, these wild players, I mean, it's definitely not a sure thing.
Yeah. So, against an overpair, it was going to be... I knew I was going to be around the 45 to 55%. So, I know my ace... Against, like, say, kings, queens, jacks, tens, that ace is going to be live, and I have 2 hearts. So 45%. There was $3 million in the pot. It's 11 mil, like a little over 11 million. I call. I mean, I think it's. I did the equities, and it was very close whether I should call or not here. But here's the other side of this. He could be jamming air here. A lot of times he jams nothing, and I think ace high is going to be good about 10 to 20% of the time. Which he was jamming air. I mean, he had ace high, ace jack, so he's jamming ace high. So if he's doing that with ace jack, he's actually doing it with king queen, king jack, queen jack, jack 10 suited. There's a host of range of other hands. I think my read is good that he is jamming air here sometimes. Problem was it was the right air.
Well, and you also have history, you said, of seeing him jam air. Like, didn't you say you saw him jam 9 high and stuff?
Oh, several times.
Yeah, so it's definitely... Because at first I was thinking, I think you're being too generous with the percent, but after remembering that you said you saw him jam even lighter many times, definitely makes sense that he could be doing it 10 to 20%.
Yeah, I would say, 10 to 20% is, I think, sometimes he has another... This was at 10 or 20%. Like I say, it just happened to be, I had a dominated ace here. So, which isn't worse, because it was about the same. Like, given that, it was about the equities that I needed to justify the call. Now, with ICM implications and all of that...
Yeah, I think that's where it gets a little dicey. I think in a straight math problem, I think you're good, but I think when ICM comes in, gets a little hairy.
Yeah, this is kind of like where the cash game, where you take, even if it's a 1%, you take that 1%. I mean, it's going to be. So, I don't mind the call. I was like, with it being the fact that it was very close to even, and the fact that I think 10 to 20%, he's going to be jamming air that I will have beat. I mean, every now and then you could have a flush draw that I have beat too, but that's pretty rare. I do like the call. I think it's just too... Now, I will say this. Me getting myself in the position with the pre-flop call of ace-8, I think is maybe... Maybe that, I think, would actually be the biggest mistake, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't realize the stack-to-pot ratio, whatever you called there. But I do feel like once you're here, I don't feel like you're here now. I mean, that's just... this hand's going to play itself out from here, right?
That was kind of my thought in the moment. Is like, if I'm going to call ace-8 suited here, get this flop of 2 overs and a nut flush draw. I mean, it seems very weird to call that just to start folding here. But, I mean, with that being said, it's... And especially getting the odds I was getting. So, I don't mind the call. I don't think I mind the fold. I think, if anything... Maybe the move would, like you say, would have been to fold ace-8 suited on the button in this. Like, it's weird to say that against a player who might be opening too wide and all that, but this gets you in the... Like, when you play that hand, this is the exact spot you kind of are going to get in.
I mean, the spot that gets you right in the parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, definitely could have. Definitely could have gone either way. And... Here's the thing is he's going crazy. He's betting. But even if he's not going crazy, let's say he's just, does an average bet of half pot or something, 1.5 million. It's a large bet into the stack to see the next.
I mean, yeah, you're definitely kind of roped. I mean, like I said, this is one that, I don't want to say you're kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. I mean, you're kind of, this is I mean, you're kind of just in there at this point with the stack to pot ratio, right? I mean, am I crazy to think that? I mean,
Well, I think that's, when I make that call, and that's kind of, so our stack to pot ratio is less than 4. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like I say, when I make this call on the button, this is kind of where you just live. Because, what are you really hoping for? You're hoping to hit a shitty ace or a flush draw. So, like I say, I'm not certain about my pre-flop call. The call on the flop with the way he's playing, I don't know that I can ever fold here. If I'm getting about right odds to most of his best hands, and he's going to have 10 to 20% air sometimes, I think the fold would be a little bit too tight, but I don't love where I got myself here.
so what ended up? So you did call.
I did call, immediately hit a hard on the turn.
Well, then it was a good play. I don't know what we were even discussing.
It's amazing play. I'm a genius.
I was about to say, you should have just led with that. You were going to turn the heart. Then we could have just jumped to the next hand because it was a great call.
You call with a flush draw, you hit a flush draw. I don't know why everybody thinks that's so hard.
The real controversy should have been you going all in pre-flop. You're going to hit a flush.
That's me waiting to then. That was the real controversy.
Okay, so that, I imagine after you double up there, you're just a massive stack at this point.
Oh, I was just gigantic at that point. And, all I could think about was like, God, I have a huge stack. It's going to look real shitty when I come in 7. I've been in so many spots before where I had like a small stack and, double up, triple up, and you look like a genius. But, and then you have a big stack. You're expected to do well. I would much rather have the expectations, hindered a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So, that was a pretty, definitely a pivotal hand in your tournament run so far.
Oh, 100%. I would say the most pivotal because, shit, these other hands might not even get there without that hand. So the next controversial hand I played, I have pocket 3s on the button, and I make it, the blinds are, I think they must have been 2-4, I think.
Okay.
No, it would have been less. I make it 2.5 big blinds. I do know that for certain. To 750,000. So, Min is on the... Now, this is something I had thought of beforehand, before I ever acted. I was like, well, if I do this, he could jam a huge range of hands. He has about 4 million. And I had already made the decision, like, when I'm like, I think this is too weak to fold here, especially this being on the button. I need to play aggressive enough with a big stack to make this raise. I should be raising actually a lot lighter than this on a button. But I was like, he definitely could jam, and then you just have to call it off. So he's going to have, he's going to be jamming very wide. He has about, I think, a little over 4 million with the 750,000. If he has an overpair over 3s, it's just, that's how shit runs when, if it's buttoned to his big blind. But it's mostly going to be 50-50 with a lot of dead money in there. So I make the raise from 750,000. He does jam. I pretty much snap call. He has 7-8 off, and it runs out clean.
Oh, that's nice.
So, a lot of people seem shocked that I made this call for 4 million with pocket 3s. I thought this was one of the easiest calls I made.
Okay, so let's go with this again. So, how much did you make it? How much did you raise to, and then how much?
750,000.
And how much was in his stack?
He had just a little over 4 million.
I think it's pretty normal, right?
I thought it was a very easy call.
Not even against just him, but isn't that just a kind of a standard call at that point?
Even against against a player who's not losing his mind. Who's just playing more. I won't say losing his mind, but playing more average,
GTO, more textbook.
Yeah, more textbook. I would say it's kind of close at the very least. They're going to have a lot more overs than they are going to be pocket pairs. But I will say I would be kind of close because the problem being is when you call and you're right, then, you had pot odds and it's a good call. But when you call and you're, dead, I mean, you're just so dead. So it'd be very close, I think. But against him, knowing he's going to push a huge range of hands, I thought this was a super easy call.
Here's a question, though. I mean, you definitely know more about this than me, but kind of abusing the big stack in a tournament like this, like in later stages, isn't that just kind of a situation that you just kind of end up in? Like you have the hand, you're not bullying, but you're using your stack, and you're gonna raise that hand, and kind of calling it off there. Like, in that kind of part of it, or am I just off? I might just be off.
Well, I know, like people ask me, like, going into day 3, I had a pretty big stack, and they're like, well, you can use it to... I've heard everything from, like, you could just fold and start getting a lot of money, that's like folding, to, like, you can use your big stack to kind of bully. I don't do either. I kind of let the cards and position dictate what I do in the action. Like, every hand, I don't go in with a plan. I just go in based on, like, what the action is before me, what cards I have, and what position I'm in. If I'm getting great cards, I'll be aggressive, kind of like this. If I'm not getting cards, I'll fold out. But I guess you're right in the fact that I had so many chips did make it easier. If it's my tournament life, you're right that all of a sudden I'm not loving it.
Yeah, well, that was just kind of my thought. It's like I thought, like, kind of as the big stack, once you make that raise, like it would kind of be a close spot to make the call that I think would lean more towards calling than not.
Like I say, I found this to be a super easy call. And like I say, given the pot odds, given his range of hands, I was kind of shocked that anybody else would be shocked in this one. Like the flush, I definitely kind of get it at least a little bit for our stack size and everything. This was, I thought just very standard almost.
Cool. So you won, and
yeah, the pocket threes hold up. So he's actually a small favorite with a 7-8 suited. Not 7-8 off. But in threes ended up, 49-51, ton of dead money. Super happy to take that spot. So that was the second hand that was a little controversial. This one, I actually watched it and watched everybody lose their mind, like, because we were on break when it came in on the stream.
I saw someone ask it, like, did your feet kick like a donkey whenever you played that hand?
No, they did not. I flopped around more like a fish. So I raise from the button with ace-king suited. Ace-king of spades. Lisa defends in the big blind, and she has ace-4 of hearts. The flop was ace-king 7.
Were we still, like, six-handed here, right? It was still...
Yeah, this would have been six-handed, I believe.
Okay, and the flop?
Ace-king 7. 2 hearts.
Okay, so you flop top 2, and there's obvious draws out there, which she actually happens to have.
Yeah. So she checks. I check behind.
What's the stack to pot ratio for her? Because she's going to be the small stack here, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Do you remember roughly, at least? I don't need an exact count. I know you can be off a few.
Yeah, it was about 6. I think I made it 1 million. I think she was probably like a 1 to... I think she probably had a 6 of SPR.
It's almost like... Okay, so
it's a... So, which actually is a good point, because it does come into play here on the thought process. She checks. Obviously, I smashed the hell out of this flop. I check. And my thought process at the moment was she's not going to have a flush draw all that often. I raise from the... I was a pre-flop raiser. This smacks my range to no end. And I'm double blocking ace-king. And I think it's going to be hard to be calling anything. Like, with me double blocking, her probably not going to have a flush draw all that often. It's going to be hard to get action here. And I'm not really scared of anything in the deck. She does have hearts here, but she's not going to very often. And if a heart comes, I'm still not all that concerned at this point.
That we need
Should've
the board
been.
to pair.
Yeah. And with top two, I mean, even if she has an ace or king, I mean, we're gonna get this in a lot anyways. I mean, like you mentioned, the SPR is not that high, so I play it a little bit like I would. I try to play it a little bit like I would like a pocket pair of 8s, 9s. It would be kind of scared. That has some showdown value, but that is kind of scared of ace king. The turn is a 10. Let me ask you this. What do you think about that flop check?
Well, after everyone says that they hated it, I'm gonna be like, wow, I liked it. But no, I did. I do like, because I mean, not even considering the stack to pot ratio, just what could she have to call? Like, that's kind of my thing. Like, you block everything good. Like, I don't think I'd check. I'd probably bet really small. But, same difference really, though. But, I mean, that's what I would have done, just as I would with most of my range, I think.
I think I've come around that I do like a small bet.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you here. And the reasoning being is that, obviously, when I pre-flop raise, this smacks my range to no end. But I'm raising from the button. I don't really have to have any of this. I'm going to be raising with a lot of hands here on the button. But I did go.
Oh, but I was going to say, overall, though, I like the check. I would have probably bet smaller, but I think I definitely wouldn't have been blasting here because, you want to call. You don't want to blast for pot here, like 3/4 pot and just get a fold.
That's kind of my thought. When, like I said, I don't hate the check either, because the king. If she's got a king, I think the check works out better. And the SPR is low enough that it can be a 2-street hand.
Oh, 100%. This is weird because this is kind of like, not very often does this come into play. Does this expression really actually come into play? But you kind of needed her to catch up a little bit. Like, you didn't know what she had. But, when you block top 2 pair, it's just, yeah. So I think, I don't mind it. It's not as tragic as, I was in that poker room too, as everyone made it seem.
Yeah, it was. I think the vast majority of the time. I think it's very different when people are seeing like what kind of hand she has and how much protection I need there. But I think the vast majority of the time this is okay. I equated it to flopping top set, kind of like where you're blocking everything you want them to have. And you kind of need to show some weakness maybe to get any action whatsoever on this hand. And if she has an ace or king, I kind of love it. We're still on there. So, I don't know. I could go either way. I will say this. I don't hate the check. I think I can bet small or check. I think either way is probably okay.
Agreed. What was the turn?
The turn was a 10. She bets $1.5 million. She has $6 million behind. I think about it for a lot, for quite a while, and I think the announcers I noticed were thinking that I might be looking for monsters under the bed. I was really thinking of how to get the money in. Really, though.
I think you'd be raising here, right? Or what did you do?
I end up jamming for her stack.
Okay. Well, shoot, we would have played this very similar. Okay.
Yeah, it's a. At the end of the day, I was like, well, if she's got Queen Jack, she's got Queen Jack. That's just how it goes. But she's not going to have it very often. She can have a lot of 2 pairs here. She can also have a lot of pair plus straight draws. So, and there's, she could have a flush draw as well. So I end up jamming, and I'm like, well, I'm going to go ahead and get it all in or deny her equity. One or the other. She makes the call. I see probably the best hand I could ever imagine. Well, not really. A flush draw. King 10. I'd love King 10. I'd love Ace 10. Actually, see a hand that I don't actually even love that much. But I do have her ace. She has ace 4 of hearts. I do have the ace dominated. A 4 is no good. One heart on the river is the only thing that will help her. And she does hit a heart on the river to take a huge chunk of my stack at that point.
I mean, dude, I imagine that heart must have just, been crushing.
Oh, I mean, if we're not being live streamed, I'll probably start crying at the table. I mean, not even like weeping, like knock the chair back a little bit, like just get on the floor, roll around. I mean, it being live streamed is the only reason I probably just act like an adult at all.
I figured you just act casual and call the floor, be like, floor, I think someone just shit in my pants. I don't know who. We need to start roll the tape back.
Yeah. Shit in my pants.
I mean,
Definitely can't be me.
But I mean, you said it best after that term was like, I mean, the role, because we already all know the result of the tournament, but to go from being the monster stack to now this, I mean, we're like, at first we were thinking like first or second, third is going to be like, third is easy when we saw how much chips you had. Like, no way could you do worse than third. It was what, like, my biased opinion is.
Oh.
And obviously tournaments are so swingy that it's obviously not a very smart opinion. But then we see you take this huge hit and we're like, I mean, I don't think third is even in the realm of possibility for him at this point.
Oh, at that point, it was super unlikely. The other biggest stack got into it with her with a 2-pair over 2-pair. And that's the only thing that really made third a possibility. So, and I told you this. I think we discussed it more after the podcast and during it.
It was me who shit my pants.
No, that's not been proven, and I will not admit to it. So, and don't get me wrong, I love having the big stack and going in, and I'd always take that every day. But I mean, going into the live, I would almost rather that not be a live stream when I have the big stack, because you know what you know how big the expectations are, and you know what the possibilities are.
Oh, I mean, I didn't say it to you, but I mean, I was so guilty. I was hyping everyone up. I was like, first seems so possible. I'm like, he's a big favorite for first. I mean, he has, at one point, you had like 5X number 2, the second place person or something. It was just ridiculous.
Oh, 100%. I mean, well, I'll tell you what, if that hand goes differently, I mean, well, I'll tell you what. Well, you were probably saying that after I won the flush hand, and I was stacked at that point. Because at that point, I had just an insane amount of chips, so it's but that one.
But really, it just speaks volumes to, like, how swingy the final tables are when those blinds start going. I mean, you can be the monster stack to just being the next guy out.
Well, I mean, here the problem being is, like, you have more chips, but either you're going to lose against the stacks, or some of these short stacks are going to go up against each other, and guess what? One of them's going to win. So, I mean, if you have, 12 and 2 short stacks go each other and they have 4 million each, well, you might still have them beat, like, at the end of the day, but they're now at 8 million, like one of them is. So, you're not as big a favorite as it. I mean, whereas you were 1 to 3, now they can knock out a ton of your chips.
Yeah, I mean, almost basically knock you out to where you're just jamming almost anything. So
yeah, so it's tournaments are swingy, and I kind of knew that going in because throughout the tournament I was actually pretty deep stacked a lot of it, and people are like, "Ooh, you're doing good." I'm like, "Well, I am, but anything can happen."
I mean, we can bring up a sad story at Prime where you were the deep stack and just ran aces or kings into aces, and then like ace king into aces, like back to back, and was like eliminated in an hour.
Oh yeah, I went to one day 2. That was probably the first day 2 I had done in maybe ever, and I went in. Yeah, I wasn't the chip lead, but I was definitely in the top 10. And there's like 65 people left. And yeah, like you said, I got aces that got cracked, kings that got cracked, and ace king that got cracked back to back to back. And I went from like probably 7th in chips, where I was like, at this point, like first price is like 40,000. I'm like, this is a good chance. And they only made the money because they created another place for like 63rd.
Everyone's talking like, so he lost with aces, kings, and ace king. Like, yeah, we can let him have some money.
Yeah. Only time they ever took money after someone had busted to give them money.
But yeah, like I mean, it definitely adds that added pressure that is almost not even in your control because it's just the variance is so high. It's being so short.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So it was So yeah, I think I played fairly well at the final table. I don't mind any of. I don't think there were any huge
disasters.
Mistakes. Yeah, it's there were some that I would say the ace 8 hand would be the one that I mean, looking back, maybe that was pretty close, but I'm pretty okay with just about all of it. It's I mean,
like a heart game. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, hit your flushes. I mean, people who are critical. I mean, it's not my fault. I practiced flush hitting.
So, what was the hand that took you out though? Just because we just talked about it. It was, or all you say it.
So it gets down to 3. Russian Dave to my left, and then the eventual winner, Lisa, to his left. I get he folds button. She's in small blind. She raises jacks. I have ace queen. I mean, it was one of those. I did not really want to go up against her at this point because I was actually second in chips, and I mean, we're looking at 96,000 to 150,000. But when you have ace queen 3-handed, I mean, this is where you're going with it at this point. At the chip stack I had, I jam in. She instantly calls. She knew I was aggressive, so I think she thought she was going to be in better shape than she was. I think she was just kind of shocked to see ace queen. But jacks hold, and she beats me, and like she beats the other guy so fast, like I hadn't even done cashing out, and he was behind me in line. So, which I mean, she had a ton of chips, so I mean, it only takes one hand.
Yeah, he's behind your lines. Like, isn't she mean?
I mean, she was mean. She was a very nice lady. Mean as a poker player, I will say that.
Well, anyone who takes all my money is mean. I don't care how nice they are while they do it.
Yeah. She smiled sweetly, and as she took all of my money.
So while we stay on the same track, it's high stakes poker. I'm going to do a daily today. That's what we're fresh off of. I'm kind of looking at these hands. I have some. I mean, it is so hard to keep notes in a tournament.
It's so much harder than a cash game, right?
I mean, I can really figure out my own blinds, let alone write them all down. I mean, I'm trying to, like, the blinds are changing, my stack size is changing, so I'll just hit you with a few interesting ones.
Okay.
Here was one that was super interesting, was I have 9-4 offsuit in the big blind, fold all the way to the small blind, and at this point I'm like, please give me a walk, is what I'm hoping for.
Definitely.
He doesn't. He just completes. So I just check, and I'm like, wow.
Seems like a standard move.
Yeah, I'm like, well, hopefully I'm just get out of here. Flop comes queen 4-4. I'm like, let me look at these cards again. So, and then better yet, he bets like pretty big.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, because that's the big thing is like when you get a hand like this, but it's heads up, it's very hard to get action ever on this. Like,
sorry, I'm jumping topics jumping subjects on the story, but I had one nice hero call because you and I had talked about having some top pair hero calls in the range. And I had an offsuit ace in the big blind. I was battling out of this big blind. Where I flopped an ace. But I was like, it limped all the way around. I completed. I flopped an ace on a rainbow board. I had ace-6 offsuit. I was just like, if I bet and get called, that's not good, you know?
Yeah.
So it checks around. The turn is a brick. Then this guy starts betting. So I'm like, well, this seems weird. So I called, and then he potted it on the river, and I snap called before he even put the chips in. He just had nothing, just like 8 high or something.
Yeah, I definitely, I completely agree. This is one thing I've found. This is really helped me. I don't know where I learned it, if it was like pretty much every place has a poker coaching or a cross live or whatever. But turning your marginal made hands into bluff catchers, they really, I think, become way more profitable, and they protect your checking range a lot.
But so that was the hand. So I knew this guy was capable of bluffing, but same opponent here, and he also knew I was able to call light too. So he bets, but he bets like, I mean, man, I wish I remember the exact big blinds because I know he bet 100,000, and it was still pretty early. I mean, yeah, it means nothing and without the context of the blinds, but it was, I think it was around pot, and I call, turn as a brick. He bets again, like a little bit more than half pot.
Were y'all heads up in this hand?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're okay.
Yeah. Oh, it's kind of confusing if I just reference a different hand where we went multi-way. But yeah, in this one, it's small blind versus big blind.
Okay.
He bets turn, and I call, and then the river's another brick. So, I mean, there's really nothing out here. I think it was a jack, but no obvious straights or anything. He checks to me, and then I just jam. What do you think about?
Oh, this is you're back to the 9-4
Yeah.
hand. Okay. I thought we were still in the A6 hand.
Oh, Jesus Christ. No, that was way over. I already hero called that and got paid.
Oh, good Lord. Okay. Okay. So
Do I need to break it down one more time faster?
no, it's fine. Because, I mean, okay, he bets flop, you call. He bets turn, you call. He checks river, you jam.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, I mean, all that's, I mean, all that I think is very standard. I will say I like the call, not the raise on flop and turn here. Basically because it's such a dry board, it sounds like.
I mean, 4-4 queen, yeah.
I mean, against a good player, I might raise here and there because they're going to put it together that you can't have a 4 very often here, and they might get suspicious. But against most players, and this tournament was the definition of most players, I just love the call and jam river. I think it's perfect.
He actually calls, and he had queen 9, and I had 9-4 for the trips, and he had top pair.
I mean, he just was not a believer in you at that point. But, I mean, queen 9, your kicker doesn't come into play because you really don't raise. You didn't raise from pre-flop. I definitely can understand where he would be tempted, but, I mean, great hand by you. Like I say, I love the call down, and I love the jam.
Yeah, like I said, that one's a pretty big hand for me. That one got me kind of rolling into the later stages of the tournament. I mean, none of the other ones, I thought they're all pretty standard. I mean, it's kind of like you jam and the run out is what it is, whether you win or lose. But the hand that I got out on was, we can talk about this. It's kind of funny. So there's like 12 or 14 people left. And, that's a lie. Sorry. Right at 10 people. So now the hard bubble's on, right?
Okay. 2
tables left, 10 people. And they're like, should we pay the bubble? One guy's like, no. And I was like, yeah, no. I'm with him. And then everyone's like, we should pay the bubble. He's like, oh, all right, I'll pay the bubble. And I just sat there, and they're like, are you sure? Then the deal's like, do you want to pay the bubble? I'm like, sure. I mean, shit, it's probably going to be me. I mean, even though I'm over here deep as hell with my 30 big blinds. But I'm like, so I actually was like, sure, whatever. So they pay the 10th place person. We're 4-handed at our table, which is kind of weird. But I get ace king. So it goes under the gun raises. It's on me. I just jam. At this point, I don't know.
You probably have 20 big blinds?
Yeah, during the discussion, I had 30. Now I had less, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was probably closer to like 15 than I am 20.
Okay.
I jam. He snap calls with pocket kings, and I lose.
I mean, very, very sad to be in a 4-handed table and get ace king to kings. But, That's no. I mean, that's obviously that's just standard. I mean, you jam Ace King all day, every day. 3-bet jam there. I would say I think the most interesting part of this is I have more experience in tournaments and cash games are probably close to the same. What do you think of? Because you have not played a lot of tournaments ever.
Probably less than 20 lifetime.
Yeah,
easily less than 20 lifetime.
And you're kind of starting to try to get a little bit more experience in tournaments. How was it? How'd you like it in general?
Well, I went for the glory, and I didn't get it, so it was meh. No. I was like, doesn't matter the stakes. I just need to win. No. Oh. This is what we were talking about afterward, though. The thing I liked the most is there was no PLO or bomb pot hand. That's what I liked.
That is nice. It's a I mean, here's the question. Like, I find tournaments way more fun because there's just more. One is you're not always at 9-handed. Like some places when you play cash game, you're always 9-handed. It seems like, and with a list just in case you get to an 8-handed, someone waiting. I like the fact that you play some short-handed, then you'll go back to 9-handed. There's different amount of people at the table. The blinds are different, so you're constantly kind of managing your blinds and like your ranges and all that. And then you basically have a rooting interest in every single hand. Because if somebody goes out, it's all money that's now in the pot that you can win, they can't. So you kind of have a rooting interest, which cash, outside of hoping a fish gets lucky here and there, you don't really have any rooting interest. I always found tournaments way more fun. Now, small stakes, I think cash games are more profitable, which is why I have not played as many tournaments. But I find them way more fun. Did you see any of that?
Oh, I mean, 100. I mean, pretty much everything you're saying is just right on the money with it. And this sounds weird, but it does seem like the daily tournaments, the fish are even fishier than the cash game fish, right?
Oh, I mean, 100%.
I mean, because you just see, I mean, at the lowest stakes tournaments, I mean, you just see the most wild things going on.
Which I guess I should have thought about that going into the 1500. Like I was comparing it to the 5-10 cash games because I was like, well, if you have enough to buy a 1500 buy-in tournament, I assume you are at the very least a studied player, if not a pro. And I tell you what, that was not the case. And I should have thought about that as tournaments because as bad as the play is at 1-3, 1-2, which can be horrendous at times, it's a different level in like a tournament, in a daily tournament.
Here's the part that I did like that was noticeably different is when the tournament got to the point where no one could rebuy and everyone was folding and then it was battling for the blinds. That part was cool.
Yeah, because it kind of becomes even crazy players start playing, at least trying to play somewhat correct a little bit.
Well, I mean, they're like, wait, now if I lose I have to go home? Don't like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can't rebuy. So that part was cool. And, like, I got to steal some blinds. I got to actually bluff a hand, which was cool. Not, like, noteworthy. I mean, just, you know. Kind of got tangled up in a hand where I was like, well, I have an ace here, blind versus blind. Maybe I can, win, but nah. So,
but you did cash.
Oh yeah, I did end up being that 10th place bubble guy.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. Like I say, a cash is very good. You're only going to do it very, not that often. So I was glad to see you, having not played a ton of tournaments, already cash like one of the first ones you've done that you say probably about 20, but I mean one of the first ones I've seen you do in probably 6 months, maybe longer.
Oh my god! I mean, last one I played was the one with you when you came in second at Johnny Chan 88 or whatever.
Oh, I mean, okay, we're probably looking more at 2 years.
Yeah, I'm like 6 months. Like, where have you been?
I mean, Johnny Chan's hasn't even been open for 2 years.
Yeah, or whatever. It might have been 52 Social at the time. Whenever you came in second, it might have been before Johnny Chan's actually.
No, it was 52 Social, 100%. That's because I remember that run because I had a pretty good tournament run during that series.
Yeah, that was the last.
That's
one.
the last one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been way more than even 2 years.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking. I was like, Yeah, because I mean, I've had a deep run on like an online tournament once where I won like $200 on like a really cheap like $10 buy-in or something. Actually, it might have been 400. And they did that one, and I've done a PLO one where they did the round of each PLO, where I went all in on my PLO hand because I had to take a phone call, and I ended up getting it a 6-way all in and winning with 7-8 suited.
If there's ever a way to describe PLO, that definitely sounds like the perfect description of it.
Yeah, I did that one where I ended up cashing, and then before that, so this is all even before the tournament that you did, I ended up doing one at a free roll where I got down to literal one blind and got pocket aces and came in second eventually.
That's pretty crazy.
That was the coolest. That was really cool. And that was the one where they're like, "Do you want an ICM chop? Heads up." And I was like, "We got to play it out for practice, bud." And next hand I got busted. I was like, "God."
Oh, I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely less than 20 though, for sure.
Okay, well, like I say, good to see you cash on.
Pretty good run on these.
Yeah. So it's but yeah, that's I don't know. That's like I say, I'm kind of interested to see if you stick. I'm interested to see if you stick with the tournament thing or if you switch back to cash or what your plan is.
Okay, I know it's the end of the pie. We'll talk about it a little bit. So now that I moved, the tournament, kind of like how when you were in Caldwell, it kind of might work out better for me to like go do the one day versus trying to do multiple days of cash, like to take a dedicated day. But then I also weigh like maybe I could play, if I drive a little bit farther, I could play cash all night long. So that's kind of the debate I'm going through right now is like, is it worth doing the tournament? Because now I live farther away, driving on in to just do the one tournament, or play cash, from like, I mean, let's just say probably by the time I get there, 11:30 midnight to like 5 or 6 a.m.
Yeah, that's I think part of everybody's dilemma is like what fits better with your schedule and your lifestyle. I mean, that's a huge part of it, and probably even more so than what's profitable is what you can. It doesn't matter how profitable something is if you can't get over there to do it. So
yeah, so that's kind of the debate right now, and just trying to kind of test the schedule. So we'll see how it goes. I mean,
well, good to see you kind of mixing it up.
Yeah. Well, I guess on that note, this concludes the Tex Wilker podcast. We'll talk to you next week.
That was the Texas Poker Podcast. Go ahead and rack up, add time, and we'll see you next week.